Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome to Wargame. Grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, get a bunch of cookies because this is going to be a long replay. We're here straight to the point, 60,000 destruction points to go, 10v10, huge map of course. And we're going to be following Wolf today, and Wolf is using a British deck. He's going to be focusing on armor and providing AA escorts, and his initial action is going to be capturing Delta. Usually, on a 10v10 like this, there will be a helicopter rush early on. You're going to see helicopters trying to grab either Delta or all the way over to India. Juliet, although Delta is far more valuable. Land reinforcement route, naval reinforcement route. If you have this, you have a very strong position, because you can of course maintain that position way easier than you could if you would just capture Juliet. So, this zone is critical to capture, and Wolf is sending a couple of SAS initially to make sure that he has that zone. Also in that flight is a Gazelle AH-1, a command helicopter, which usually I'm not too fond of, but in this situation it can work. And a Lynx AH-7 with a bunch of recon infantry inside. Now this replay is going to last 90 minutes, although I doubt I'll make it that long. Because usually these things tend to have spurts of action and then a whole lot of nothing. So let's just get this thing moving. You got the initial very busy Skytrain. You got there's the Skytrain. You got, of course, the Smirch runs, and the initial casualties have already been established. Red 4 has managed to capture and kill quite a few. And by the looks of it, there is no real offensive over on this flank. A couple of Stormers being deployed, a couple of repairs being deployed here. I believe that those can also be deployed from naval units, so from the naval entrance, which is why they are on the water, although I'm not sure exactly why they're all the way out there, other than to protect those ships. Now, the new train is coming in. We have a couple of Patriots, some Lars, we have a Stormer there for defense, Saxons with AGGMs, Warriors with infantry, Chieftain Mark 11s, and a Rover Pinky up front. The Rover Pinky is a unit that I don't really cover that often. It is a really good exceptional optics unit. It's just extremely fragile. It only has that 5 hit points, no armor whatsoever. The only thing it has to rely on to stay alive is staying at range and making sure that you see the other person before they see you. Now, it looks like he was trying to get a couple of guys deployed here. Red is doing everything in its power to stop that helicopter. And he's remarkably lucky here. Gotta say that. If he can drop off the infantry right now, before those yaks turn around, he might be able to get away with it too. Super Pumas over there. Not really sure why anyone would want to use those. Oh no. Well, the helicopter crash wasn't too severe, but I'm not sure if they made it out alive. Over towards the middle, we have the first real couple of engagements going on. SCS are desperately trying to hold the structures here, while the enemy is pushing a lot of infantry towards that position there. BMD-3s, BTR-ADAs, MTLBVs. The SAS are going to have their day ruined if they don't get reinforcements real soon. There goes the SAS. Surprising though, I'm only seeing one player here, and that is Wolf. There is no real backup there. We have Jake down the middle, we have Green Headache, and this would be Fluker. So where are the other 5 persons? Where are the other 5 players in this match? Artillery coming in. Large amounts of artillery, as always. The Lars 2 firing standard HE projectiles and neutralizing whatever Red had in there, or heavily stunning and or killing it off. Just look at the sheer volume of missiles going in there. The thing is, these things are quite pricey to reinforce and resupply. The Lars 2, especially if you have this many batteries, will chew through a lot of supplies. And I always heavily question the real effect of it. Because The guy who was operating that was Barbara Bush. Barbara Bush has managed to score a grand total of 286 points. The investment for those Lars 2s per Lars is 70 points. So times 6, that's 420 points. Oh, correction, there's even 8 of them. So that's 560 points. That's a huge investment. For 560 points, you could also get 3 super heavies and then still have spare. And 3 super heavies are, well, at least under my control, going to be more useful in a actual damaging role than the artillery. And sometimes I think that people just like watching the pretty lights, just like watching the fireworks. Look at the sheer number of aircraft that Red's putting up. Su-27s, Yak-141s, even an Su-27K in there. It looks like they're doing a hefty air patrol. Tomcats are trying to intercept, getting a few missiles off. Although against the ECM, which is really high on the PU, I doubt that they're going to get any kind of effect. It looks like Red is now trying to actively intercept those Tomcats. There's a squad of 4 Rafales operating here. Dutchman's operating those with an ECR. Clever having an ECR in there. It has the same speed, and it might be able to use its ECM to present itself as a target and then to deflect that missile. Now, Red seems to have decided against pushing after those Rafales and pursuing them. So they are just all being evac'd, and that's going to be one busy airfield when they get deployed. Rover Pinky has made it to the front line. This is, however, not the ideal position for the Pinky, or at least I wouldn't really use it as such. Because one unit of infantry only has to crawl up this hill, right through this tree line, and you would have no more Rover Pinky. Fusiliers pushing up. Not really a good position for Fusiliers. I usually consider this whole area tank warfare, or at least ranged. I mean, vehicle support tab can also use or provide quite a few useful units. For example, swing fire, but also the AVRE, very useful unit. You can see that the warriors and the Fusiliers are all being hammered. There's not a lot left of these guys. Let's see what else Wolf is bringing in. Looks like he's positioning some AA nearby. Although Red Force seems to know better than to actually pursue any kind of offensive over there. At least not with aircraft. So far we're only seeing tanks. A couple of chieftains duking it out with ZTZ-88s. So far the damage seems to be even. Rate of fire is in the advantage of the 88s. These things have more armor though. Yeah, it's gonna be tight. I think that the chieftains might win it. It's gonna be very close. Situation like this, you can easily position a Eurofighter. There's a correction, I'm seeing 3 Eurofighters destroyed. You can easily position a Challenger 2 and try and hammer those tanks pretty much with ease. Not too sure where all of those Eurofighters went down. But it looks like we've got a massive air fight going on the right flank. Lots of ships being positioned here. Mostly ships that I wouldn't particularly take, such as the Hujan. It's a pretty decent ship if you're dealing with other ships. But Blue only really has a couple of ships here, not that many. Although the Congo, of course, is a significant problem. This thing not only has that very good Autobreda compact gun system on it, but it also has the SM2 MR Block 11 missile long-range anti-airplane. 4,900 meters, almost as good as the Patriot, but at least this thing carries 96 of those missiles, whereas the Patriot only carries 4, I believe. You can see that they're trying to hammer away at the 88, but these things only fire HE. Sanich is asking for resupplies and repairs in the Congo. Repairing a Congo is incredibly expensive and takes a long time. I'm not going to say it takes half the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it actually would take that long. Chinook coming in, a couple of AS-90s there. Now normally you would expect artillery like this to be sitting over there at the base, at the fob. The problem is that the AS-90 does not quite have the range. 24.5 kilometers is going to get you pretty much into Foxtrot, unless I'm very much mistaken. But not much more than that. Looks like the Congo is taking a severe beating. I'm seeing Smirch coming in, missiles, and no more Congo. I wouldn't be surprised if Sanich is now going to blame Jake for this, as he didn't repair the Congo. Well, let me tell you that the Congo would have been dead either way. Sanich has done very well with the Congo though, 1366 points. And unfortunately his lead ship is down, but the two Hatsuyukis can still defend themselves quite well. Although all of these missiles are going to be hitting some ships. Most of them have been intercepted, but they are at least alive. Now let's see what's going on the left side of the map. Papa is currently not being captured by anyone, and from the looks of it they have so much recon here that they would be able to see any kind of ship that Red might deploy. I'm only seeing a couple of Shanghais, but nothing else. So Red has not really deployed any kind of navy, and that means that Blue could capture this area, but it's a risky endeavor. It's going to take either a amphibious CV or a ship of themselves, and it looks like they decided to go with the second option. They're going with actual ships. Now this is something that I'm seeing right now, by the way. I'm seeing Jake here, LVTP-7A1s, and he's now also bringing in ships on the left. Might be his Marines here. No. The point that I'm trying to make is that he's going to be distracted. He's going to have forces on the left and forces on the right. Now, that means that most people are going to be not doing very well. It's going to be hard to either have your map zoomed out all this way and try to find your own units and what's threatening them. I mean, even Wolf at this position has a couple of chieftains, a stormer over there. Most of his units seem to be over there. A couple at the front line, but in a scrolled out situation like that, you can barely see what's going to be a problem and which forces are being threatened. So it's like fighting in several different arenas, a different area of operations, and trying to make sense of it all. So far, it's not doing too bad though. 931 points. Artillery, of course, coming in yet again on both the Milan 2 and the Chieftain. And since this is base HE damage, it is going to hurt the Milans, and one of the squads has already died. The others are going to get killed. Nope, they managed to survive, although their missile will not be that accurate for a while. 44%, and the T-80B is probably very, very happy with that result. Now Wolf is also bringing in a large screen of Lynx HAS-2. Not my particular choice of helicopter, so I'm really interested to see how he's going to deploy those. Because helicopters, in my eyes, are always inferior to airplanes when it comes down to striking ships. Helicopters need supplies. Using aircraft, they're going to get resupplied automatically back at the airport. And this will mean that the HAS-2 is going to take a lot of supplies and logistics and micromanagement, whereas the planes do not. They don't take that much micromanagement, they get rearmed for free, and you don't have to worry about sending these things back to a location, or sending the airplanes back to a location to get them resupplied. But we might be seeing some action from these guys a bit later. For now, Blue has captured this terrain with a amphibious CV, as I had more or less expected. And so far as they can dominate this area, they will have a little bit more income, +3 there. Now I'm going to speed it up a little bit, otherwise we're still going to be here tomorrow. Depending on which time you're watching this video, of course, you might still be here, as the official day changes from 11 to 12. By the looks of it, a couple of monitor zippos from Jake. And he is putting everything on fire. Despite the fact that Spetsnaz usually seem to like fire, they are not that happy with the current result. The thing is that blue now has to push in, because while it's nice to get kills, it's better to get terrain. And for now, they have not really gained any terrain. Let's see if there's anyone left there. Yeah, a couple of Motostrelkis and a couple of Morskayas, but that's it. You could really easily push in here at this stage. And that is something that I still see most people not do. It's like they go, yeah, let's just fire our artillery or our expensive ships at this position, and nothing. The way that I usually try to do it is I get my forces, I try and push on an area, I require artillery from either my teammates or myself, hammer the area, try to neutralize everything that's in there, and then you push in and you take it. And that is what Sanish is now trying to do. A couple of V-150s, and by the veterancy I'd say that might be Delta Force, Rangers, or SEALs. Let's have a look at what he's going to offload. Yep, it's Delta. Delta is currently being challenged by a couple of Motostrelkis. They lost one V-150, but so far the Delta Force themselves have survived. This Milan 2, I believe, has been making good money. Lots of kills coming in from this one guy with a Milan launcher. It's just going to be a bit of an issue keeping him resupplied, but so far the LCU seems to be doing a fantastic job at that. And just love it that these things can traverse under bridges. That makes them so diverse in this area. It's going to take a little bit of micromanagement to get them here, because you first need to make sure that they get to the river in the first place, and from this area that seems to be a bit safer. From this side you are likely to take an anti-ship missile. And now they can resupply the trucks, and the trucks can resupply everything else nearby. Wolf, in the meanwhile, has deployed a couple of Gurkhas. He seems to be trying to retake this hill here. Now, Wolf, what I would recommend is that you split up these Gurkhas. One artillery strike, one airstrike, or a large amount of HE damage, be it either from napalm tanks or Spetsnaz, is going to really hurt all three of the squads. Keeping them in smaller formations will do you better. And the Spetsnaz have already arrived, so let's see if the Gurkhas are in fact all going to take damage at the same time. Even if they aren't, they are still that close together that they're going to be panicked. Whereas if you have one Gurkha there, and one there, they're not that much influenced by each other. Look at these things get murdered by the Spetsnaz. They're doing what they can, but the Spetsnaz take no prisoners whatsoever. Lots of fire support coming in from Vidras, some BMPs, and all of a sudden, out of your 45 Gurkhas, you have 10 left. Spread them out, make sure you have the required backup, because against this much firepower, the Gurkhas wouldn't be useful anyway. Spetsnaz might have exhausted their supply of the RPO, so that is a good thing. It just took them a lot of kills to get there, so this action has really hurt Blue 4. Red is doing quite the amphibious landing here. This is usually the ideal moment to strike this group. If you can hit these with a couple of cluster bombs, you can not just kill the vehicle, but also kill the infantry inside. And that will cost them a lot of losses. Now, these things aren't particularly high veterancy, so they're not that dangerous, but if you can kill them before they get there, then it always means that you don't have to deal with the infantry. In the meanwhile, Red is pushing up with a couple of ships. A Luda got nailed there. Tarantulas and Nanushkas are looking at the wreck. Not really that much they can do. And this is when Wolf is going to push in with his helos. The whole formation of these things. Not sure if these things have a stabilizer. Let's have a look. Yep, they do have a stabilizer. They can fire those missiles in full flight. They are doing so. First salvo going into the Nanushka. So far, no hits whatsoever. Really? Yep, now the Nanushka's getting hit. Blowing up the Muna instead. Tarantula there. Nanushka dead. One Lynx has been destroyed. But they got completely avenged by the tractor Piers, which shot down a very, very expensive jet. And these things aren't really that expensive, 40 points. It's just that you need so damn many of them. And they need a whole support structure in order to get them to work very well, that I find them slightly, or rather actually, inferior to the units that I usually use, the airplanes, as mentioned. Now, in the meanwhile, Blue is pushing up, and he's doing, or actually they're doing quite a good job in getting the terrain. Lots and lots and lots of fire support ships here from Barbara Bush. STB-90H. And Dutchman is also putting his own STB-90H to work. When you're using these ships, try and micromanage them. Because what you're going to see here is multiple STB-90H firing Hellfires at 15-point transports. It's a big waste, and Hellfires are really, really expensive. They can cut through a transport no problem, but they can also cut through a tank with pretty much the same ease. So make sure you save your missiles. That's why I usually have one STB-90H with active Hellfires and the other ones I disable. That way you make sure that you get the maximum, literally, the maximum bang for your buck, as Hellfires are really expensive. Now, STB-90H are getting engaged by helicopters. The best way for these things to deal with that is to just move in. Get close, use the machine guns, and start wiping out those helos, and that's exactly what's going on here. These helos do not stand a chance against 16 dual M2 machine guns, which are all being fired at exactly the same time. A couple of coolers are coming in. That's going to be a bit more of an issue. These things are starting to run. A couple of bake news would be really, really helpful right now. But I don't think that we're going to be seeing any of those anytime soon. Sea Cobras, Sea Hawks seem to be keeping in reserve here. Super Cobras would be real useful in deterring these couple of helicopters that are pushing in. In the meanwhile, let's see how the right flank is doing. Blue seems to be gaining terrain, and Wolf is now skirmishing with Granatomets and Motorschützen. The one thing I'm not seeing people use here is mortars. If you see someone bringing in a lot of infantry, and you just got all of your Gurkhas slaughtered by a couple of Spetsnaz, make sure you have mortars, because they can help you in multiple ways. One, you can just use them as direct fire supports. Just from about 4 clicks away, they can very quickly hit anything that might be threatening you, stunning them, panicking them, whatsoever. Then, if you do need to fall back for some reason, you can always put up a smoke screen. And lastly, you can put up a smoke screen if you want to do an offensive action. Looks like we've got an anti-ship train over on the right, doing a bit of a flyby here, not really getting any missiles off, but this is the prime target. Jiangyu 3, neutralized, and yep, that is not really good coordination. This Jiangyu 3 here was alone. The rest of the fleet was back there, where it could not do anything to help them whatsoever. Talking of ships though, Red has brought in an Udaloy, which has taken quite a few missiles already. It's down to about, I'd say, 20, maybe 25% of its hit points. And it's going to take Blue a couple of more missiles to get that thing down, which are being delivered by the Lynx. The Lynx are coming in again. Now the range for these things against helicopters is only 2450. The Nanushkas, again, not that good, 2800. The thing is, you need to get these things to fire at the same target. All of them, at exactly the same time. That's why when I do use helicopters, and I have used them in the campaign for example, if I do use them, I will fly them in, weapons off, get them all lined up, make sure they're all facing the target, and then you press H and you watch the fireworks. That's when all of those missiles will fly out at exactly the same time and hit the exact same target. That is, if you indicate what the target is going to be. Otherwise, of course, they will not actually be all going towards the same thing, they'll just go towards the closest target. Now so far the battle, as far as points goes, is very, very much in the advantage of Blue. You can see Blue is ahead by 4,000 points, or near enough. And Red is not just losing units, they're also losing a lot of terrain. Another quad stack of Fusiliers. Wolf, make sure you split those up, otherwise they're going to get killed off all at the same time. Or not all of the squads will fire. This is something that seems to be going on at the moment. The other squads are still trying to catch up, as the first two groups of Fusiliers are already engaging these Yuk days. And they will probably win it, but there's still a slightly more efficient way to do it. Boris Gromov has surrendered, which is a red 4. A couple more Fusiliers coming in. And it seems that something went wrong in the combined arms approach, as I'm only seeing Fusiliers push up, and before that I only saw warriors push up. And I'm not seeing any kind of AA, short of this lonely chieftain. And one marksman will be able to take care of all of those helos, but you need to give it a bit of time to catch up. So a bit of feedback here. Make sure you use a combined arms approach. Use tanks, AA, infantry and fire support vehicles all in tandem. You want to all have those things work together. That way you make sure that the units all get the maximum output. And you can counter pretty much all threats. A Stormer would be useful as well, to make sure that you can deal with those Ka-52s without the risk of taking seed missiles. And the losses would have been far less than they are currently. But surprisingly, Blue has found at least one command unit, and quite surprisingly it's the only one. You can see more and more of Red 4 leaving at the moment. A couple more helicopters going in. They are trying to get missiles in on the Chieftain, but the Chieftain might be stunning them so fast that they are not actually getting any of the accuracy that they seem to want to get. The problem, as always, with the marksman platform is that while it is heavily armored and has a great weapon system, it just doesn't carry that much ammo for the weapon. That's exactly the problem that you're seeing now. It is starting to run out of ammo. It only has 102 rounds left. The armor is protecting it, but the accuracy, combined with the low amount of ammo, will mean that it is not going to be able to kill those two Mi-24Ps. So you gotta make sure you have more AA here, because currently there's nowhere near enough AA nearby to make sure that all of those helicopters are going to go down. Red has reinforced their fleet. The Udaloy is down to 1 hit point, which does not mean it's down to 1 point of strength. It means that it's probably down to about, I'd say, 20 hit points. Maybe something like that. Because, as always, this bar at the bottom means that that is the display of hit points. But whereas, for example, an Anushka has 4 hit points, 1 hit point represents 20 points, if that makes sense. The 80 strength means that if you have 3 blocks left, you have 60 strength. Sorry, 60. 60 strength. The Udaloy has 300 points of strength, and I believe, by the looks of it, probably 15 points in hit points. And this makes it quite deceptive. It's not that this thing needs just 1 more tank round. It's likely that it needs a couple more tank rounds or anti-ship missiles before it's going to go down. And the Lynxes are firing, again spreading out over multiple targets, and with those multiple targets all being in pretty close proximity to each other, nothing is actually getting hit, and everything is sharing their AA and their missile defenses. The Udaloy has gone down, thanks to Dutchman's Hornets. A couple more ships going up there. Looks like these two are no longer with us. Muna is getting worried. Yeah, I suppose so. He just watched 3 of his buddies blow up. The air train from Red is trying to do whatever it can, but it arrived way too late in order to intercept all of those blue jets to actually do anything against all the anti-ship missiles coming in. Over to the right, there's a ton of muskets. I'm not sure why these guys brought in all the muskets. There's not really that much of a ship threat here. Woodsey is bringing in a Bakenue and a Type 21. I'm really curious how long this Type 21 is going to be with us. Type 21s are notoriously bad at defending themselves. Or anything else for that matter. The only redeeming quality of this ship is the gun. Because it's not particularly accurate, but it does have 7 HE damage, and it has a very nice range. Although that 4.5 clicks range is not something that you're going to get much use of, unless you park your ship somewhere back there, where they're not that likely to get hit. Now someone decided to start a napalm fire on the water. Not too sure why. Doesn't really get them that much, but this Monitor Zippo is just sailing in completely undeterred by the fact that the whole area is on fire. Killing off an AA unit there. I'm not sure if the Shantu is dead. Yep, by the looks of it, he's just going down. But seriously, seeing people use napalm against ships is definitely something new. I've seen people use Atacams against ships, and that makes sense, but using napalm against ships? Maybe to stun it, but otherwise, nah, not so much. Now, as for the other areas, it looks like for some reason there's no longer a CV in this sector, which is a bit unusual. I would say that the area should still be able to contain a CV. There's really nothing threatening this area. And I don't see how Blue could have killed the CV other than by a lucky hit with a cluster bomb or with cluster artillery. Other than that, it might be a salty Red 4 player who's just decided to sabotage the rest of the team by pulling his CV away and basically putting the rest of the team at a disadvantage here. You can see the distance is already 6,000 at the moment, with Wolf actually having the most points. He has 3,000 points, and the other guys closest to him is Fluker at 2,684 points. Of course, this doesn't say anything about losses, but it does say that they have been able to kill the most stuff so far. A couple of Zanshi are trying to cross the bridge. Looks like the AS-90s got to work them over before they got there. And as per good practice, he's moving his AS-90s right after they fired to make sure they are no more a target and that they are not that susceptible to counter battery. Alright, let's speed this thing up a little bit, because it is taking a long while, of course. Wolf is bringing in a couple of Lafayettes, and considering that most of the Red 4 fleet is now right there at the bottom, these Lafayettes can work pretty freely at killing off whatever happens to be close to the shoreline. It's a perfect way to get a lot more kills in, and to suppress anything that might come in towards this position. This is buying your allies a bit of time to reinforce this position, so that when the enemy actually is going to push past the Lafayettes, because they might either go down or run out of ammo, you still have plenty of units left. A couple of ships going in. These are going to prove to be quite the threat to the Lafayettes, especially when backed up with Super Pumas. This is going to be an interesting fight. The Lafayettes, though, are probably not even spotted yet. These things have, I believe, medium stealth. Yep, medium stealth there. They are quite effective at hiding. And sometimes the first thing that you're going to see about the Lafayette being there is shells coming out of nowhere. It's what we in World of Warships call Invisifire, meaning that you can fire from complete stealth. Let's see if Red 4 can see them. Yeah, Red 4, nope, and then they're gone. That's how good the stealth is on those ships. They just disappear if they are not actually firing, or if the recon is not capable of spotting them because they're too far away. LCU comes in. If you want to use these Lafayettes, one thing is really important, and that's keeping them supplied. Because while they do have those Crotal CN2s and that very good ECM value, which is going to make it difficult for missiles to hit them, they don't have that many anti-missile missiles or interception missiles other than the Crotals. And they have 24 of these. They run out really quickly. And unlike some other ships, they don't seem to have any of those close-in weapon systems. They seem to have some of them, but not nearly as many as some of the other ships. Let's see if I can compare that. Have a look at the Baeknu, for example. The Baeknu, nope, sorry, wrong ship. Lafayette, Type 21s, Hatsuyuki, yep, hold. Hatsuyuki has these CWIS systems, close-in weapon systems. And of course, right at this moment I cannot find any. There we go. The Phalanx weapon systems. These will shoot any missile that comes close. The Lafayettes either don't have these things, or they might be hidden somehow. So that is something that you definitely need to keep an eye on if you're using Lafayettes. Now, Blue is continuing to push up. They are gaining quite a few kilometers towards November, bringing in quite some heavy units. I saw a M1A2, I'm not sure it's still with us. I think it may have died already. Right flank, very, very slowly pushing up, but not really making any real progress so far. Blue, though, is making real progress on the Navy area. You can see a lot of artillery coming in, which, again, let me guess. Who is using these? I'd say that might be this guy. Barbara. Shooting missiles, or shooting artillery of any sort at these sort of ships. If you are going to do it, make sure it's shell artillery instead of just the MLRS. The MLRS are not really that likely to hit, whereas the actual artillery batteries, so the shell firing units, are much, much more likely to hit anything. It didn't really work out. It didn't really get anywhere. You can see that red is suddenly spawning in a lot of ships. Hujans, Jiangyus, and the whole of Blue Fleet is going down. It's going to take possibly a minute more, but that's it for this Lafayette. Nothing they can do there. Woodsy surrenders after losing pretty much his entire fleet in the span of about 5 minutes. Once again, Wolf is pushing into the middle. Barbara saying wait, and he's still firing artillery. And have a look at his damage counter there. Nothing. While the artillery strike, I know, is not always intended to do pure damage, pure kills, it can be used to stun stuff. Mortars do exactly the same thing. They will stun stuff, they will slightly damage it, and all of this MLRS, I don't know, it's just, for me, a very, very big waste of resources, points, supplies, everything. But let's leave it at that. That's all I'm going to say on the topic of MLRS. A couple of Fusiliers are surviving here, and they are now getting backup from challengers. Chieftains, Chieftain Marksmen, Stormer nearby, KM200s with more infantry ready. These things look like they're going to have a bad day. Oh wow, reservists? Okay. Challenger 1 Mark II is taking a lot of fire up close. There's the command infantry. Now this is something I don't understand. Why doesn't Red just deploy command infantry over there? Actually they have. Blue has pushed in a command leopard too. That's why. Looks like Red is now really getting on the run. Blue has taken over the middle of the map. Foxtrot is theirs. Actually, I suppose you could say that this is the middle of the map, this bridge. Once you have Foxtrot, you have a definite advantage over the enemy. You can also see that going on in the points. 13,000 points in advantage of Blue. This may look impressive, by the way, but it's really not. This is a huge investment from Strange Station 90. And if you want to take out a fleet like this, go for the weakest element first. Fly in your ships, really, stealth, what have you been drinking? Fly in your aircraft along this vector, tell them to head north and hit one of the ships on the outlines. Do not go directly for the Sovereign, as it will not work. You need to pick off one by one, and that will work. Red's also pushing in some ships on the left flank, which are gonna go down. But the Lafayettes are in the fight of their life as they're dealing with a lot of these smallish Shanghais, which really are... Whoa! That was impressive. That's what you get for maneuvering all of these things so close together. Lafayettes have survived, although by the skin of their teeth. This thing is calm, which is quite a feat considering the whole ship is on fire. And they are trying to retreat, trying to get the last out of the LCU. But getting this thing up to full strength is going to take a long time. Red, though, is pushing in. Zanik is using his Lafayettes to defend this area, but not really getting enough effect out of that. You can see that the Lafayettes are now out of missiles, meaning that pretty much any missile fired at the Lafayette has a very, very good chance to hit him. Except for the ECM, of course. A couple ships coming in, a couple aircraft trying to help out, and if you have this many ships nearby, I would not spawn in any new ones. It is just too dangerous. Get your get your anti-ship planes and just start hitting these things, because going after them with ships is going to be a bad trade. Lots of Super Puma plans are coming in from Wolf. Firing missile after missile after missile, trying to hit the Sovereign. And this is exactly what I mean by trying to pick off the weakest first. By going directly for the Sovereign, he picked the hardest target. And the Sovereign is very, very, very capable of defeating missiles that are fired at it. Of course, it will not defeat any missile, but if those Lynxes had engaged just the Sovereign, they probably would have killed it. Right now, they engaged the Sovereign with all of its escorts, and that's why it didn't work. Pick off Tarantulas, pick off the Nushkas, then go for the Sovereign. Sovereign should be your last kill. Now, Wolf is pushing up far. You can see that he is already making it into Bravo. Flying in a command helo, no less. That is some downright cheeky play right there. Considering that they have absolutely nothing to hold the zone with. Chinooks are getting evac'd at the last possible moment, and I think that this challenge is for Chieftain Marksman. Yeah, it was going to be doomed anyway. Not that much that they could do. It has even been captured, and unless he pulls this Lynx away right now and gets real lucky, and he does get real lucky, I thought that they would be losing this command helo. LCU goes in. I'm not really too sure why. Sort of scout, or I don't know. Could not really make sense of that. A couple of Seed aircraft are coming in with bombers. Looks like that could be a good airstrike. Couple of kills, not that many. Some Harriers have been lost. So far, he's scored 6,500 points, closing on 7,000 already. And Red is still 13,000 behind. It is possible to come back from that, but it is not easy. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of units, and a lot of good coordination with the rest of your team. I think I've done it once or twice, but you need to have the best possible coordination. You need to give orders. You need to start thinking, okay, who's going to bring what? Do we have any specialized decks that can do a specific job? And if so, which deck should be doing what job, and where are you operating, and what help do you need? By doing it in such a fashion, you can still get quite the distance closed in from 38,024. Now, there seems to be a bit of a lull in the fighting. Right now, there's a lot of forces over there. Red seems to be mostly defending over on the left, whereas the right is really quite light. Signage is pushing with 2 Chimeras. Oh dear. No recon, no AA, no infantry to push, no smokes, no artillery, no nothing. 1 AA. Yeah, well, I'm surprised the Chimeras are still here. BMP-2Ds are coming in. That means you have about 8 Concours closing in fast. Chimeras can take a couple of missiles, but their reload rate will mean that they're going to take a few more before they get the chance to kill off any of these other BMP-2s. Really, really surprised that these things actually survived. One of them went down. Yeah, I'm not too surprised that one of them died. Over on the right, I missed it, but the Red 4 fleet has been completely destroyed. Nothing left. Oh, correction. They have been retreated. Sometimes I don't always pay attention to the mini-map. There is so much going on in these games and so much that I want to show you that I just don't always notice big, large, red blobs moving across the map. I try to, but Wargame has a lot of stuff. Now this looks to be an interesting attack. They have Shanghais for days. The problem is, you cannot engage a Shanghai with an anti-ship missile. It's classed as a river-class sailing ship, which means that these things are impervious to anti-ship missile fire. They cannot be hit. So the units that are being used are mostly anti-tank planes. Seeing some long-range missiles go in. Hushan's getting killed off. Stormer is trying to do damage against some of these Shanghais, but really does not have that much of a chance. It's going to get overwhelmed pretty soon, although I gotta say the armor is holding up quite nice against all of that machine gun fire. But of course machine gun fire only does HE damage. And by the way, the suppression is really low. A suppression of 2? Can this even be right? Because this would mean that those guns, 37mm guns, have a suppression of 2. Watch this. Let's say a K1. K1 with a 12.7mm machine gun, which is far lower than the machine gun mounted on the Shanghai, has a suppression value of 90. So either we're dealing with some sort of bug here, or Eugen may have overlooked this. If you know something else about this, if you know why this is the case, then please let me know. And otherwise, let's send in a bug report to Eugen, because this doesn't quite look right. The Shanghais are closing in. They're taking a lot of artillery fire, getting stunned, but otherwise undamaged. The best way to kill all of these bastards is to use either ships or a couple of tanks. Sea Cobras will work, but they're a rather expensive solution. Those TOW-2 missiles can get the job done, but they're a really expensive way to get the job done, whereas a few tanks can easily wipe out all of these ships. Now, the same thing goes here that I said earlier for the STRB-90H, the ship with the Hellfires. These things carry Hellfires too. And unless you all give them a different target, they're going to have overlap. And you're going to start losing missiles due to the fact that you see missiles going into targets that have just been destroyed. Which is a big waste. And look at that, the investment here, 1 Lynx is 110 points. So we're looking at 550 points versus ships that are 30 points each. I'd be surprised if this entire fleet was worth 550. Of course, you can always use the Hellfires and the Lynx 3s for something else later on, provided that your fob isn't empty. Looks like most fobs are empty, actually. Some of them are still in okay condition, but most of them have been drained, probably by the artillery that's going on. Anyway, the first thing you always need to ask yourself in Wargame is this a threat? Is this something that needs to go in the first place? If so, kill it. If not, you can possibly safely ignore it, and you might not even be required to take everything down. Another nice airstrike, a couple of good kills there. 1 Fusilier left, and it looks like he did not quite survive. Lafayette's pushing in, and if they can make it all the way to Oscar and try to kill the command vehicle there, then they have nothing further to fear from a naval spawn there. The question is, can they get there? Because while it might be nice to start seeing the hit points of a T-72B1 or a BU disappear, it's not really worth it. Pushing in, And getting the kill on the naval spawn, which is really the source of all their issues, would be a much better use of their forces. Unfortunately, one of the Lafayettes died. A couple of Lynx AH-7s being brought in with a lot of infantry on board. A whole train of those things. And they are starting to take missile fire. One down. But it looks like there's no further AA in November. That is interesting. SAS. The AH-7s are trying to do what they can to help out with the rocket pods, but let's face it, they're not really going to be that effective. SAS are taking up the town. Wolf is putting up a help marker. He needs assistance here. The Akulas think, ooh, nice snack. The SAS say, hell no, and they shoot down those helicopters like they have no problem with it whatsoever. SAS trying to take the building, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could get a flank shot on these BUs, and even then, the AT-4 can be quite lethal. There's the first kill. Wow, well done. Do not push your T-72 BUs in this close, because it is going to backfire spectacularly. Red has once again spawned in a large fleet, and by now they are almost 20,000 points behind. The other fleet is still there. All of the Shanghais are still looking there. I don't know what they're doing. Still just sitting around, merrily waiting their turn, I suppose. The SAS are pushing up, but they are getting their asses handed to them. They are all out of stingers, which means that all of these helos are a big issue. Red is pushing in with a helicopter offensive. While these Rapiers might be able to take some of them down. Nope, they never got into range. This is going to be interesting, seeing how blue is going to deter this threat. Super Hornets coming in, taking out the Tarantula. A couple of anti-ship missiles, shore batteries. Might have been able to hit them. Nothing really too serious. Very, very dauntless offensive there. Costing them one Harrier. There's another kill, thanks to a seed aircraft. Yeah, let's face it, this is completely done for Red. Blue is about to get to 60,000. I'm actually quite interested to see the result screen, see how that's going to come out. Red's doing a final desperate offensive, but this is bad. If I ever catch you doing this, having these four ships this close together, I'm going to kill you. And I'm not just going to kill one of them, I'm going to kill all four of you. These ships have perfect overlapping fields of fire, which is a good thing. The bad thing is that they are also one huge target. Blow up this ship, this thing takes a lot of damage. If it has already taken damage, it blows up and you get a domino effect. Do not ever park your ships this close together because you will regret it. I'm really waiting for someone to realize that. Bring in a couple of anti-ship planes and just nuke the entire force here. Defense marker coming in from Pox and Bear. Couple more Super Cobras coming in. ASM helos. Tram intruders. Here we go. Slow that down. I want to see what those missiles do. Yeah, all of them got intercepted, but one Zhang Yu is dead. One Zhang Yu, no, it moved up further. It's one kill, he panicked. His other buddy got damaged. What are you doing? Okay. Not sure why the Chinooks just flew in there like that. Maybe as a bit of a missile target? Presenting themselves as a threat? I don't know. Let's just push this up and see what the result screen is going to be. Red has been able to kick them back out of Bravo and November though. So Red is not giving up terrain freely. And it looks like Blue... Nope, they never made it to 60,000. They made it to 58. And that's when the timer ran out, the 90-minute timer. So, Wolf, our main character here, got 12,000 damage done, 5,740 losses. Very, very good score. Couple things. Make sure you use a combined arms approach. use fire support vehicles such as the Warrior 90. Use the infantry and the vehicle together. Back it up with a bit of AA and a tank to make sure that it can go up against pretty much any threat. It can kill helicopters with the AA, it can kill infantry with either infantry, tanks or fire supports. It can kill other infantry transports with the tank. And it can kill infantry or vehicles up close with the infantry. That way you're going to have less losses. That way you're going to do better. So that's it for today's 10v10 large-scale war. Very spammy tactics, as you can see in 10v10s. But hey, it's part of Wargame, so might as well cover it. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for more Wargame videos.